Welcome back to another episode of Ballers, Beers, and Banter. I'm your host, Dave. Here with me, one's a week one overtime hero, and the other one's a bust. Anthony and Moose.
Hello.
What's up?
Who's who?
I was neither of those things.
No, I mean, you didn't have any overtime heroics. Well, that's
No,
true. I guess
didn't.
I guess technically, my team had some overtime heroics there, but we're recording right after the exciting Raiders-Ravens overtime classic. Wow, what a game! What a game! That was exciting.
a very wild ending. I loved it.
Of course, Moose recommended drafting Daniel Carlson as a kicker all over the place. I have him in quite a few leagues. Tons of implications. Carlson going against Ravens defense. We're calculating scenarios of what situations can happen to win.
This is one of those times where on the podcast, I feel like I give advice to people in my league and then it ends up biting me. And it was the case. Dave took my advice and it cost me a win.
Yep. I took Daniel Carlson.
Although
you could have taken him.
This is true. But although I think Lamar's fumble probably costed me more in the end.
2 fumbles.
Yes.
2 fumbles.
He almost cost me in our dynasty league. He fumbled
Cost or costed?
Cost.
It felt like he had costed. Felt like he had costed.
I was accosted by the fumbles.
I was accosted, yeah. He cost me he almost cost me the dynasty league. 2 fumbles. I won by 2 points. I mean, yikes.
Oh baby. So now that
Tennessee is back.
Now that week one's done, we'll get into some more implications from Raiders, Ravens, and all that. But now that week one is officially in the books, time for all sorts of overreactions, underreactions, projections, and everyone freaks out after week one. But if I have learned anything in fantasy football, it's not to overreact positively or negatively to week one results. So we're going to try and reel everyone in on this episode of the podcast. But first, we want to throw it to some headlines.
Yeah, I mean, we're just following up on some of the injuries that happened yesterday. I guess starting with the Washington football team, Ryan Fitzpatrick will be placed on IR. He did suffer a hip
subluxation.
I don't know. Now they're just making stuff up.
I feel like I said it.
Old hip guy?
Yesterday, but
I definitely said it wrong yesterday, but it's something that sounds like
subluxation is what I see right here.
6 to 8 weeks. I don't know. He'll go see Carson Wentz's surgeon. He'll be back next week.
That's it. So they're not sure on the.
They might clean some things up.
Yeah. They're not sure on his timeline, but I guess time will tell with the surgery, which means Taylor Heinicke will be the starting QB for the Washington football team. Which means he will start on Thursday against the New York Giants.
So do you win that beer bet, Anthony? Or
he does not
no.
win that beer bet.
So actually, now it pretty much guarantees you don't win the beer bet.
No, because if he goes to Carson Wentz's doctor, Fitzpatrick comes back and goes in. And then he plays poorly, maybe due to having an injury.
Yeah.
And Heinicke comes in after.
It's going to be tough. Because Anthony bet that Heinicke would, for our listeners, would take over, not due to injury, from Ryan Fitzpatrick due to poor play. Like Fitzpatrick would get benched. But now it's going to be tough because Heinicke has taken over because of injury specifically.
No, I think at this point the bet is void.
Oh, that's nice of you, Moose. That's nice of you.
Well, because how do you determine that it's not if Ryan Fitzpatrick does come back, how do you determine that it's not a nagging hip? But I don't think so. I think at this point,
well, I mean,
his season's done. His season's done. He's not going to come back, and they're not going to put him in.
Let's wait for the timeline, and then we'll void it.
Yeah, I realistically, I think if Taylor Heinicke has a good, let's say it takes 6 to 8 weeks, they're going to let him roll with it.
Yeah, I think they will. And especially because he's younger. He could be the quarterback of the future, maybe. Anyways, we'll get into that a little more when we preview Thursday Night Football in that upcoming segment.
Some headlines for this specific player. Rashaad Penny. Nobody cares, but Rashaad Penny.
That's harsh. People in Seattle care.
Yeah, people in Seattle. And Rashaad.
If you're holding your breath for him to make a comeback at some point, it's never going to happen. He suffered a calf injury on Sunday. It's not considered to be major. It's a minor injury, but I mean, he's plagued with injuries. So I wouldn't keep him on your team. If you drafted him hoping he would play, drop him. There are better guys that you can pick up.
He's someone you can drop. He's droppable.
Some other news. So Jerry Jeudy just
you can become. Hold on, I just thought of one. Your team can become Rashaad penniless. You're welcome. You're welcome, listeners.
In fact, I think I can hear a penny drop. That was
yeah,
because it was bad.
Yeah.
You're so penny wise, Moose.
Ha ha ha.
Yeah, let's keep going.
You guys are on tonight. Well, Dave, you're on tonight. I mean, you come back. You missed yesterday. You come back today with these jokes. But I mean,
being very punny. Okay, keep going.
All right. So yesterday we spoke about Jerry Jeudy. His injury, his high ankle sprain, was yesterday was feared to be 6 to 8 weeks. It seems like it will sideline him for 4 to 6 weeks per source. So we'll have to keep a close eye on that.
Those are tough to come back on. Just to jump in on that. So I know Courtland Sutton had a terrible outing, caught one ball, I think. But do we expect him to then take over, be the lead target getter for Teddy Bridgewater?
So right now, it seems like KJ Hamler's the guy. Courtland Sutton, of course, might see more targets due to this, but also
Tim Patrick.
He scored a touchdown last game. I think he just got into the double digits, I think he just.
Tim Patrick is a red zone machine.
Yes. So
let's talk about those guys on waiver wire.
Yeah. All right, and then another injury to give you updates on is Raheem Mostert. He will be out about 8 weeks with a chipped cartilage issue in his knee.
No surprise. We
didn't even get that one game out of him. We wanted to.
Yeah. I know. I joke about Raheem Mostert a lot about his shaky knees. However, I did read today that his wife has reached out to the community. Apparently, he got a lot of hate mail. And people giving a really hard time. Guys, it's fantasy football. Like, I know we like I said, we joke about players and when they have poor performances, but there's no need to bombard players with hate mail. The guy just got injured. It happens.
Yeah, these are real people, and it's something to keep in mind. Like, it's not pretty easy to put yourself in their shoes just for a moment. He just found out he has another injury, out for 8 weeks. Probably could lose his job to these young bucks coming up. Cut the guy some slack, man. He didn't do it on purpose. You think he wants to get injured? Give me a break. All right, hope you heal up, Mostert.
I mean,
yeah.
Raheem did give you a break.
Oh, Moose.
I had to. It was just there.
And this other information, I mean, it's too late now, but the Ravens did not activate Le'Veon Bell or Devonta Freeman from the practice squad. Latavius Murray and Trenton Cannon were the running backs behind Tyson Williams. So to me, it's noteworthy to mention, even though the game is done at this point, because Latavius Murray was the last one signed, and he got in there in the first game. So it seems like if you picked up Le'Veon Bell, Devonta Freeman, I think those are some guys you can, if you want to keep Le'Veon Bell because you think he's going to be fantastic again, I mean, but I think you can drop those two guys.
Here's how I see it. So Devonta Freeman lost the job to Latavius Murray in New Orleans.
Right.
Okay. And then they ended up releasing Latavius Murray anyways. So
issues.
Contract
issues. Yeah.
But they knew that. It's not like they cut Devonta Freeman. They're like, oh, and Latavius Murray's going to cost us money. They knew that. So this guy, lost the job to someone they were going to release anyways. And, Latavius Murray was signed right onto the team. Yeah. Lev Bell had to go to the practice squad. So that tells me that Lev Bell is nowhere near where Latavius Murray is, and neither is Devonta Freeman. And Latavius Murray looked pretty sluggish out there tonight. 2 yards, a couple yards here and there. He had to get tackled into the end zone. He got like confused, and he had to be tackled into the end zone for a touchdown.
But so he did score.
So he scored, yeah. But I wouldn't say Latavius Murray scored. I think if Latavius Murray was by himself, he probably would have fallen at the 1 yard line.
To me, it's pretty simple. Tyson Williams, based on seeing him play, this is the first time I really got to see quality action from him. He's budget J.K. Dobbins, and Latavius Murray is budget Gus Edwards. So they have the same way they plan to use their two backs. They're just lesser versions of what those two backs were going to be. But that's what they are.
Yeah, and that's what I got for the news.
Well, that takes us right into our remaining
there's got to be more news than that.
More injury reports or news? Well, you guys must have covered a bunch yesterday.
Yeah, well, this is following up on those. I mean, if you want to get into some other news that's not really that important, Tyrell Williams is in concussion protocol after taking a shot to the head on Sunday. We don't
significant enough.
Well, I mean, yeah, if you thought he would be the lead receiver over there, but
one less mouth to feed. So that Detroit.
Well, we don't know if he'll be out. He's in the concussion protocol.
Okay. TJ Hawkinson looked like every bit of the tight end we said he would be as the only target on Detroit. And
right. Well, Jamal Williams did, I believe, get 9 targets out of the backfield. That's where he made most of his fantasy points.
We told you.
So I have a significant headline that we for sure didn't talk about yesterday. Michael Gallup is placed on the IR.
We did talk about we talked about it when we talked about the
but we knew he was injured, but we didn't know he was placed on the IR.
3 to 5 weeks. Yeah, the short-term IR.
Well, there you go. Now we've doubled down. Confirmed.
Doubled down.
3 to 5 weeks. No Michael Gallup.
Yeah, I think short-term IR is usually 3 weeks, so it depends on his recovery. That will determine the time. And I mean, we can mention this too. I think it's still up in the air or not very specific yet, but people were wondering what happened to Brandon Aiyuk. He was in the game, didn't catch anything. You have beat reporters coming out. He's still learning how to be a pro. He was hampered by injury. He has a hamstring issue. So, I mean, keep an eye on that. But I think after this game, if it was due to off the field issues or not getting, acting like a pro, I'm sure he's learned his lesson after this week.
And what I read today is potentially even more concerning is Shanahan was concerned with the drops in training camp. Mm-hmm. He was dropping the ball apparently a lot in training camp and maybe preseason. I don't remember about preseason, but definitely training camp. And then he's their least effective blocker in the running game as a wide receiver, which is very important to Shanahan, very important for his scheme. They're a run-first offense, and they need wide receivers to block. So that's why you saw Sheffield in the game because he's a better blocker, and then he's in the game, so he ends up catching more balls. And, of course, Debo's got to be a good blocker because he's an absolute beast, and we saw how he was used. So, we'll get into it. We'll get into it in the waiver wire section of the podcast, but more to discuss.
I didn't even do that many drafts, and with the amount of drafting I did, I forgot that I had drafted Debo on one of my teams, which I was pleasantly surprised to find out.
Did you start him?
Yeah, I did.
Perfect.
It's so fantastic. But
well done.
I sort of forgot. Like I'd set my lineup, set my lineups because I knew who I was going to start, and then I wasn't doing so hot at the beginning of Sunday, and then suddenly points.
Rolling in. All right. Well, speaking of points rolling in, I know you guys reviewed our 6-pack beer scale and our risk assessment scale. You can find the graphic on our Instagram page, 3B Fantasy Pod on Instagram. We're also available on Twitter, Facebook, Gmail, the whole shebang. And of course, if you really want start sit decisions or advice, just talk to us live on Halftime Sports if you're not already. Wednesdays, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. You can come on, just type a name in the chat. We'll start talking about them and give you advice, or come on and discuss it with us live. But we have 2 more Baltimore Ravens to review that we had our risk assessment pretty good on one of them. We put Tyson Williams at 3 out of 5 beers, so he was right in that middle section because this is the first time he was going to play a real NFL game. But we knew that he was going to get tons of opportunity, and he did well. He did quite well tonight.
But that's what's concerning. I mean, he did play for the first half, but then almost disappeared in the second half.
Oh, did he? I was not watching the second half.
Yeah. Latavius Murray played a lot more, or at least it looked like he played a lot more in the second half. So if that was our concern, is if Tyson hadn't been productive in the first half and scored a touchdown, he may have just disappeared in the second half to give Latavius Murray time.
But the good news is most of his points came off that one touchdown run. I think it was like a 25-yarder. He looked great on that. He looked like he had good speed, and they targeted him 4 times. Latavius Murray, 0 targets. So again, like we said, we think Tyson Williams will probably carve out more of that pass catching role, a little bit more towards the J.K. Dobbins side. Latavius Murray a little more towards that power back or Gus Edwards mold.
Yeah.
But I think they're if I were to choose one, like if you guys were to choose one that you have to take one of these guys, who would you rather have on your team?
Tyson Williams.
Yeah. We play half point PPR, and we play PPR leagues, so Tyson Williams is the better option there.
He's the guy.
Latavius Murray, like they split the carries, but I mean, Tyson Williams, like Moose mentioned earlier, is a smaller guy. So
Latavius Murray, it's like as soon as somebody puts a hand on Latavius Murray's like, all right, I'm done. Just tips over.
But go forward though. Forward.
He tips forward.
Yeah.
2 yards. All right, I'm done here.
Yeah, but he might carve out a role for himself in the red zone. If the Baltimore has an effective offense, gets in the red zone, it's going to be an Andrews throw to Andrews, or it's going to be Latavius Murray falling in the end zone.
Let's be serious here. It's good for real football, but nobody should start Latavius Murray. You can't predict when he's going to fall into the end zone. Tyson Williams is the guy.
He'll fall into the end zone when somebody touches him on the 1 yard line. Oh, I guess I'll fall in.
Tyson had 16.9 points in half PPR, and Latavius 8.8 tonight. So yeah, I think we're moving. I think it's gonna be his job to lose, as they said.
Yeah.
What about Lamar Jackson? A little disappointing. We put Lamar at 6 beers, safe play, start him with confidence, and he disappointed us based on where other quarterbacks were averaging like 25 points plus this week.
Right.
He had 235 yards, completed almost like 50% completions, only 1 touchdown pass, 86 yards on the ground, as he does, 2 fumbles. What did we think about Lamar tonight?
Well, 2 fumbles were not great.
Yeah, if you add those 2 fumbles, so that's minus 2 points in our sleeper platform. So he would have been up to 19 points.
A little more respectable.
I mean, a little bit more respectable, but I think our gauge, I think we agreed on this last year, that these upper echelon quarterbacks should be averaging at least 20 points.
Yeah, but let's give a little bit of credit to the Raiders defense as well. They were not giving them an easy night.
Right.
And I really think Lamar will torch weaker defenses. But I mean, those fumbles.
Well, he can still run, and we know if they're going to need him to scramble. His throwing looked a little off, but I think he can clean it up. But he definitely still has wheels, man. At any point, and he's looking for a pass, so he's scrambling, looking for a pass.
Right.
But if he just decides to take off, he could go for 40 yards every play. But he's trying to look for passes and connect.
He needs to pick one.
No, it's not that he's hesitating. It's what's happened here is the same as what I sort of said happened in Buffalo and what I presumed would happen in San Francisco. They said, hey, Lamar, we want to keep you healthy. We don't want you taking hits. We want you to pass first, then run. So, instinctively he wants to run, but he's going, well, got to get that ball downfield first. So that's why he's hesitating. He just wants to take off.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like, take off. That's the hesitation, because he's thinking like, oh, they want me to pass the ball more because they want me to have a long career. But pick one.
But this is it. That's the thing. They got to figure it out. Do they want to be passing or do they want to be Lamar Jackson?
So last year the problem was passing. So now, like, he seemed pretty efficient today. But if you throw in
19 for 30, 19 for 30.
I know compared to Derek Carr. So they were both in this. They were both in the same boat where, it was a tie game. They had to throw the ball. Derek Carr was 34 for 56. So just to look at the comparison, 19 for 30 for Jackson, 34 on 56 for Derek Carr. I mean, that's what a passer needs to have as a stat line in a game like this.
Like when you need to throw a game-winning touchdown and you throw an interception? I mean, Lamar also fumbled it on, the game-winning drive there.
Yeah, but I don't think that interception was on Derek Carr, if that's the one you're referring in overtime.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't on him. It went right through the receiver's hands. He placed it perfectly.
All right.
But, enough on this game.
Enough of that game, and that concludes the rest of our 6-pack review. And we love the 6-pack method. We'll make adjustments to the graphics as we go, and we appreciate your feedback. If you have anything for us, if you want to see more names on the list, less names on the list, just give us any feedback you have. 3B Fantasy Pod.
Also, we could do the 6-packery live on the halftime show. So if you want to give an input, we'll do it. We'll do it live. We'll take your input.
Live.
We'll take
I'll write the darn thing.
We'll take your input into consideration for our beer scale.
Awesome. I like that. I do like that. All right, let's move on to what everyone wants to be hearing. Week 1 waiver wire advice. You guys had an interesting segment last night, Moose, that was called what?
Sunday Night Gridiron Guillotine.
Love it. And that was specifically designed at who players that could be dropped, but who you should or shouldn't drop.
Incorrect.
I'm sorry.
Players who played poorly or had poor weeks, and then determining whether they could have increased value if it was just a week 1 mishap, or if you can just straight up drop them and pick up someone off the waiver wire.
Okay.
So, for example, someone like Russell Gage, who, he has potential, but put up a big old goose egg. So could you drop him to pick up someone better off the waiver wire? Say, for example, replacing him with Juwan Johnson, who got 2 touchdowns. Looks like he's going to be the red zone threat in New Orleans.
Not Troutman.
No, not Adam Troutman. But I did, which I listened to you guys and veered more towards the Gerald Everett side of things. Did get a touchdown this week, thankfully. So most of these tight ends, if you're not in the top 6 that we know of, you're going to need a touchdown to have a productive week. So that's what we're looking for. Okay, so that was last night, the guillotine. So let's get into specifically waiver wire targets, people that should be picked up or that you can look to pick up in your leagues. Should we start with the hot button running back out of San Francisco, Elijah Mitchell? Sure. I think this warrants discussion because, we've already got some feedback on our Instagram account. Should we pick up Elijah Mitchell? And everywhere I'm looking on all these fantasy accounts and fantasy advice, we're seeing a lot of Elijah Mitchell talk. Some people for, some people against. Where do you guys stand?
It's really spicy, especially if you're in fab leagues, free agent acquisition budget leagues, where you have to spend money to acquire a player. Because I think San Francisco's kind of looking like a New England situation where they have a couple of talented backs and a lot of coach speak happening here where, we didn't give you any preseason hype about Elijah Mitchell, but now it's coming out that he outplayed Trey Sermon and, gained the, opportunity to be the lead back now that Raheem Mostert's injured. Jermichael Hasty got in there for a touchdown. But, Trey Sermon's still there. It's not like Trey Sermon was benched or, he was just a healthy scratch. So it's very weird what's going to happen in week 2 because the assumption was that, they didn't want to start 4 running backs. But now Raheem Mostert's gone. So is Trey Sermon still benched or is he in? And then where does he slot? Is he ahead of Elijah Mitchell? Is it a timeshare? It could be messy.
They're going to have to use Trey Sermon in some capacity. Their hands kind of forced now. There's also Jermichael Hasty,
but
second year. Well, you don't. I mean, they're going to roll with just two running backs. They like to have.
Yeah, but this is the thing. But so Trey Sermon could play, but he might not get any touches.
Right. So this is what I wanted to point out. Moose and I touched a little bit on it yesterday. Elijah Mitchell had 19 carries for 104 yards and 1 touchdown. Jermichael Hasty had 1 carry. So Hasty got in there, and he also had 1 reception for 15 yards. He did get in there for the touchdown, a 3-yard touchdown, but Elijah Mitchell got the bulk of the carries. Again, like Moose said, we don't know Sermon, what's going on with Sermon, how much they'll make him a part of the game plan. We assume with his talent that he'll work his way into the RB1 position later on in the season. But right now they seem to trust Elijah Mitchell. 19 carries, 1 carry from Hasty. Hasty served his purpose last year. We saw some pretty decent weeks from him.
But hold on, Anthony, because Yeah, but maybe Elijah Mitchell only got touches because Raheem Mostert went out. I mean, it could have been 100% Raheem Mostert.
But that's correct. But why didn't Hasty get more touches since he was?
Yeah, but that's not what we're talking about now. Now we got to talk about Trey Sermon and Elijah Mitchell because they could both be playing next week.
Yeah.
So we know that Trey Sermon's talented. We've seen now that Elijah Mitchell's talented. So what is it? Is it a timeshare? So that's my thing is, how much of your fab do you blow all your fab to get Elijah Mitchell? And then it becomes the Trey Sermon show. And Trey Sermon gets 100% of the touches. Right. You know, like
he's worth a pickup.
It's gonna be a dicey waiver wire.
Right. So we've seen in the past that the San Francisco backfield is plagued by injury.
It's also plagued by committee.
Plagued by committee, exactly. But I think Sermon and Mitchell will be the guys because you saw the timeshare go to Elijah Mitchell. So whether Sermon is the backup to Mitchell,
but you didn't. That's my point. You didn't because Trey Sermon wasn't in. The assumption was that Raheem Mostert would get all the touches.
Right.
Maybe Elijah Mitchell sees nothing. So we don't know what the future timeshare is going to be.
Well, yes, based on the stats we do, Mostert is out. So we didn't expect anything from Elijah Mitchell. I don't say you blow your fab on him because I do think it will be a committee like it always is. But I think he's worth a pickup because if people are wondering, is Hasty going to get in there? Hasty might get in there a couple of weeks down the line, but I think Elijah Mitchell and Trey Sermon can be the two guys. So I wouldn't blow your fab on him. I would maybe throw in 15 fab dollars.
Do it in terms of percentage.
Yeah, you got to do it in percentages because everybody has a different amount of fab.
So you'd be willing to give in 15% of your fab.
Correct.
And then here's the other thing. So
not everybody's on fab too. So pick him up if you're not.
He should be picked up in every league. Now, technically, JaMychal Hasty is ahead of Trey Sermon on the depth chart, so you have to factor that in as well.
Based on Shanahan's comments, yes.
I don't want to throw a wrench into the plans here, guys, but Jeff Wilson Jr. is coming back, and they love Jeff Wilson Jr. He's coming back sooner rather than later. I think he was initially out 3 to 5 weeks, but he could be activated, I think, by week 4, Anthony, right? It's something we have to check. I think he was on the PUP list. So that could complicate things. So let's say you do get Elijah Mitchell, and he is the guy. That could change by week 4 when Jeff Wilson comes back. Jeff Wilson Jr., I should say. Then Mostert might come back week 9, although, he's so injury-plagued. We hope he comes back. We hope he's healthy. But so it is muddled. But here's the other thing that we should preface the whole waiver wire segment with. If you're happy with your running backs, you don't have to bid on Elijah Mitchell. Mm-hmm. You could put in a real low bid, and and if you have a wide receiver or someone you want to drop, whatever, put in a low bid. If you happen to get him, you get him. But if you're happy with your team, even if there's a player on your team that didn't perform, but you think you're gonna Aaron Jones, you're not gonna drop Aaron Jones. He had 3 points, right?
Here's a perfect example. A guy we brought up yesterday in Moose's segment, Devonta Booker. A lot of people had drafted him in case Saquon didn't play week 1 and in case Saquon gets injured, because they did say they would limit his touches. But Devonta Booker, I mean, he's no Wayne Gallman, I think is what you said yesterday.
He did not play well.
So if you have him as a running back on your bench, I would say switch him for a guy like
Elijah
Mitchell. Exactly.
Yeah. And then if you are in dire straits for a running back, then it's different. Then you might want to be more aggressive. And then that's when you got to know your league and know how, if there's a guy who's willing to blow his whole fab on it, then you might have to match it if you absolutely need it. You got to know your league and your league history and try to feel it out and base it that way. But there's no, we're going to give you advice and try to point you in the right direction, but you got to own the decisions and make it yourself. So Elijah Mitchell, put a bid in on him. How much depends on the situation of your team. Anthony's recommending about 15. So let's say you're not in dire straits. It's just your team's okay. You're saying about 15% of your fab. Moose, what would you put?
It's dicey. I would say
I'd go a little more. These fabs, like most fab is spent in the first couple weeks, and then you need it for when you need it, right? So I'd be willing to go up. I'd say you can go up to about 20, maybe even 25%.
That's what I was gonna say. 2025. I worry that it's gonna be like a couple seasons ago. Tariq Cohen comes out, had like an epic, like week 1, people were throwing all kinds of fab dollars at him, and then he kind of like fizzled. And
Yeah, it's
I
worth
worry,
it though. It is worth it
it's probably
because
worth
like
it.
so there's two situations. You could spend 25% of your fab and he's only good for a couple weeks. Okay, fine. And then the other, and then that's a committee. Or he could turn into the James Robinson of this year, that everyone wanted to get after week 1. So
I think the people that are going after him are the people that didn't listen to this podcast and drafted Raheem Mostert as their RB2.
Looking at you, Seeger.
Yeah. So,
sing song.
So yeah, those guys for sure will need to pick him up. But yeah, I wouldn't. We always tell people to have running back depth on your bench. So I mean, another guy, Michael Carter, that we mentioned yesterday, drop him. Drop Devonta.
You're saying drop Carter? I didn't see the game. I know he didn't get a lot of usage.
He's droppable.
Yeah,
Carter's droppable. Wow.
We had spoke about it before the season started that he has, he might even be 3rd or 4th on the depth chart. He got 4 carries, finished with 2.5 fantasy points. I mean, all the running backs were terrible, but it doesn't look like they're going to run the ball that much. And he's not number 1. He's not number 2 on the depth chart for the running backs. It's Coleman, Ty Johnson in whatever order those two will be placed in. And then it's Carter. So he's not going to.
I mean, Ty Johnson 4 carries. I didn't see the game. Ty Johnson 4 carries, Coleman 9 carries. And targets, Ty Johnson 3, Tevin Coleman none. Michael Carter had 4 carries and 2 targets.
Basically, if you have any of the Jets running backs, I would recommend dropping them for Elijah Mitchell.
I mean, if you're not beating Tevin Coleman on health alone,
so but Anthony, what about Elijah Moore? Would you drop Elijah Moore? He had
no.
Exactly.
We went over this, but this is different because Elijah Moore could turn out to be the Justin Jefferson of this season.
Right.
And
if I know anything about how much that hurts. So
yeah, and so
same team, same game. Why are you judging Elijah Moore differently than Michael Carter?
Because Elijah Moore has shown promise in camp and in the preseason, and earned a role to be a starting wide receiver. So maybe he's just getting adjusted. Traditionally it takes 3 years for a wide receiver to get adjusted, and here we are week 1 expecting miracles. So in Elijah Moore's case, okay, let's see. Maybe he's got some jitters. Maybe he's got to shake off some rust in a real NFL game.
Injury.
But Michael Carter, he's 4th on the depth chart. Never really shown anything in preseason, and he's getting outbeat. Yeah. He's getting outbeat by guys who get outbeaten. So my hopes for him aren't too high. Like I said, like Ty Johnson.
Could you have said, okay, so who's someone who broke out a little bit later last year? Could you have said the same about Jonathan Taylor last year?
No, again, because we saw Jonathan Taylor's talent in preseason and leading up to it. But Michael Carter, we haven't seen anything.
The RB1. He was on the depth chart as the RB1. Carter is 3rd.
But arguably getting outplayed. Maybe Jonathan Taylor's not the best example, but Jonathan Taylor was getting outplayed out-touched by Naheem Hines, Jordan Wilkins,
Not out-touched. It was targets that got Naheem Hines' points, and then Wilkins got in there, but realistically, it just took him a little time to adjust. But
and Michael Carter is not Jonathan Taylor. They're 2 different caliber of player.
All right.
This is a 4th round guy. Jonathan Taylor was he 1st round or was it 2nd?
Jonathan Taylor was early 2nd round.
Early 2nd round.
Yeah. Okay. So you guys recommend dropping Carter? I have him in a few leagues. I might hold on to him for 1 more week. See how it progresses against different defense. Who are the Jets against next week? Something to consider. I'll check right now. You guys keep it rolling. Next waiver wire target.
So we mentioned one before. We'll just touch on it quickly. Juwan Johnson. On Sleeper, he's listed as tight end wide receiver, which is pretty sweet. But I mean, you're not slotting him in at wide receiver because he's just touchdown dependent. But it seems like he'll be the go-to guy over Troutman. Like I said, Troutman seems to be a blocking tight end and not an offensive weapon. So I think Juwan Johnson is their target in the red zone for now until guys like Michael Thomas come back, Traquan Smith gets healthy.
And this guy is epic. If you didn't catch the game, he leaped so high in the air to catch his first touchdown. It was absolutely amazing. He leapt. He leapt.
Hopefully,
shone.
Very high in the air.
yeah.
He shone.
If you
shone when
slept
he
on
leapt.
him, he leapt.
Um,
By the way, Jets are playing New England and then Denver. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
Carter
not
probably
good.
won't be good for two more weeks at least.
Might not even get off the bench.
so yeah, slot in Juwan Johnson. And then I think this one, I mean, I'm a little surprised at myself and everybody else in all my leagues that Christian Kirk is available on the waiver wire. If you look at the depth chart for the Arizona Cardinals, we value Kyler Murray as a top a 6 out of 6 Beers type of player. DeAndre Hopkins, same type of value in the wide receiver position. And I mean, after DeAndre Hopkins, it's who? I think Christian Kirk is like a poor man's Tyler Lockett. He's a boomer bust type player.
Good analogy. Good comparison.
Thank you.
Well, I believe the assumption was that AJ Green, a healthy AJ Green, would dig into it, and also
Rondale Moore. There's a lot of Rondale Moore hype, and I would still, be wary of that. I think there's room for everybody. I think, but Christian Kirk clearly early season, that is surprising that he's not owned in more leagues because it's always going to take rookies longer. So Rondale Moore, I think, would be a longer project. They both had 5 targets.
Yeah,
but Christian Kirk caught all 5 for 70 yards and 2 touchdowns.
And that's even the thing with AJ Green. He got 6 targets as well. So we know Arizona is going to air out the ball, and they didn't even need to air out the ball that much. They kept the Tennessee behind for the entire game. So it's
bad.
Cool to see that Hopkins 8 targets, Kirk 5 targets, and he caught 5 out of 5. So he's a reliable target as well.
Ryan Tannehill looked like his Miami Dolphin days.
Brutal. Well, the whole offense, what was Derrick Henry doing? 17 carries for 58 yards. They were just bottling up. Their focus was just to stop Henry, I guess. I didn't see the game, so concerning. I'm sure Tennessee will bounce back. Tennessee could be fantasy gold. Don't overreact because if their defense is this terrible, but their offense figures it out, they're going to be in shootouts. They're going to be in shootouts, and you'll be enjoying them from a fantasy standpoint. If you're a fan, you're going to be pulling your hair out. But so Christian Kirk, I like that.
Another receiver that I think is worth mentioning is we touched a little bit on him earlier, Tim Patrick for the Denver Broncos.
Could be interesting.
Yeah, with Jerry Jeudy out. I mean, no offense, going to be a red zone target, but I think Tim Patrick is their other guy there. I think Courtland Sutton is still trying to get adjusted. He missed all of last season, and he had more of the rapport with Drew Lock, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. But I think KJ Hamler's the guy, and I think it's going to be Courtland Sutton fighting Tim Patrick for targets.
I think you got to give Courtland Sutton time. You got to give him more time. I think he will.
Sure.
He will.
He's probably still
emerge
injured.
as the but he's still kicking the rust off. Courtland Sutton's the most talented out of those 3, and he's the big body receiver. So he's like 6'4", Courtland Sutton. So give Courtland Sutton time. He will emerge as the wide receiver 1 on that team. But I think Hamler and Tim Patrick are very interesting waiver wire pickups. Tim Patrick, who was a hot waiver wire pickup a lot last season. But certainly interesting. We didn't give any percentages on these guys. So just scaling back, Juwan Johnson, Christian Kirk, percentage-wise, for if you guys are doing fab.
I think you go, for Juwan Johnson, you go 15%, I think, 20%.
What if you punted the tight end position and, you drafted Blake Jarwin as a sleeper and you're like,
that's my assumption.
Okay.
15, 20%.
15. If you really need tight end, I might go even higher. On someone like this who could emerge as a usable, reliable tight end. They're tough to find. I'm so happy I have Waller in a few leagues. I'm like, oh man, wow. Yes. It's like trying to stream tight ends or find tight ends is not fun in fantasy. So.
That's why you get them early. I've been saying it for years.
Preaching. All right, what about Christian Kirk? What would you bid on him?
I would say 20 to 25% because I think he'll be more consistent this year.
Yeah.
I know it's a crowded wide receiver core, but I think he'll be more consistent.
I'd go a little less on Christian Kirk because there's so many wide receivers. Like to me, running backs and tight ends are people spend fab if you need them. Wide receivers, every week we're going to be dishing out potential people you can pick up on the waiver wire, and people that could be good have big weeks. So I do a little less on Christian Kirk.
I do think that Christian Kirk is a unique situation just because of the points that Anthony brought up, where you just know that they're going to be peppered week in and week out in Arizona. So
will they be salted?
No,
just peppered.
Just peppered.
Wow, spicy take.
Yeah.
Hot take.
Your opponent will be salty, but Christian Kirk will be peppered.
All right. And what about Tim Patrick, KJ Hamler? How do you rank those two, and what percentage?
Well, KJ Hamler, I think, was drafted in most leagues. I don't see him available.
For me, it's a little bit less. I would put like the minimum you feel comfortable with, because at this point, Tim Patrick is, I would say, probably red zone or touchdown dependent.
Right.
Plus, let's even just see if Denver.
Let's see what happens in Denver.
Yeah, let's see what happens.
Exactly.
They played. I want to bring up someone, because we were talking about people emerging, and tonight someone emerged very late in the game, but got the Raiders down the field. Bryan Edwards.
God, will we make it through an episode of the podcast without you hyping up Bryan Edwards?
Why Bryan Edwards was not featured more in this game, we'll not know. They just decided to go to Darren Waller, who dropped the ball a bunch of times, even though he was was successful.
Overthrown a bunch of times. Goodness gracious, Derek.
Went to Hunter Renfrow, who dropped a couple of balls too. But you know who didn't drop the balls when it was thrown to him? Bryan Edwards.
He was targeted 5 times, same as Henry Ruggs. Darren Waller was targeted 19 times in today's game, guys.
So
Derek Carr was closing his eyes and throwing to Darren Waller.
Nobody's probably going to put any fab on Bryan Edwards unless there are people listening to this podcast. But you should. If you got some, low prospect on your bench, drop him, pick up Bryan Edwards. He's just getting fired up.
I don't know. I mean, to me, it was clear. So Darren Waller is the guy, as we expected. And then Hunter Renfrow is the clear number 2. And so Edwards is battling for the 3rd target share on a team led by Derek Carr, who threw 56 times today. So that's about the most volume you're going to see.
Playing against one of the best defenses in the league.
Yeah.
They scored 33 points on him.
Yep. That is true. But they are still one of the top defenses in the league. So okay. I think things could be different. But I would pick up Bryan Edwards now before you're going to be spending a ton of fab on him in the coming weeks.
Yeah.
Yes.
Pick him up for free.
I'll bring up one more. We only gave one running back option. It seems to be kind of a dead zone right now, but Mark Ingram is available in a lot of leagues. Yeah. Would you guys pick him up? I'm not.
No.
Okay, here's my question. Did either of you guys see the game? Because his stats look great. Looks like vintage Ingram, like 85 yards, touchdown. Did he look good?
Okay, but the report, like a week before the game, it was like, Mark Ingram, old, injured, not going to play. And then suddenly he comes out and has a great game. So I
26 carries.
I
want nothing to do with the Texans. It's going to be up and down all over the place. Phillip Lindsay, David Johnson, Mark Ingram, Nico Collins, Tyrod Taylor, maybe Deshaun Watson comes back. Right. Who knows? It's going to be such a pain.
Right.
He's going to be on your bench. He's going to go off. You're going to be upset. You're going to put him in. He's going to be disastrous. Yeah. Just don't give yourself the headache.
It was more I wanted to see your opinions. They did play the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I think that's the most important factor.
It'll basically be a different game plan for each opponent. So I think based on that, you might get a different receiver killing it.
But I will say, if we're wrong, Ingram will be picked up in most leagues after this performance, because people will see the 14 points, they'll see the yardage, they'll see he's the lead guy, they know his name, some people, so he'll be picked up. So if you think we're wrong about Mark Ingram and that he's kind of washed and done, and Houston's a tire fire, if you think that they're legitimate 37-21 win over Jacksonville, then you better get him this week. Okay. I'm not super excited about Mark Ingram. I'd like to see one more week, but I don't think you'll have that luxury. I think he'll get picked up, but he could get dropped again once he has a goose egg or performance, and then a 5-pointer.
And then you should also not pick him up that week.
All right. What about QBs, guys? The QB landscape, always interesting. Now it's only week 1. So, don't overreact about low performances from stud quarterbacks, but maybe there are some names to keep your eye on here, like Jameis Winston, for example.
Holy smokes.
29 points. I mean, he was known for being a top fantasy option when he was on Tampa Bay. He had a year of tutelage under Drew Brees. The Saints dismantled the Green Bay Packers. What was the score? 33-7 or 5 or what was it?
Let's not get carried away here. The Green Bay Packers dismantled themselves and New Orleans walked all over them. Is what really happened.
So they took advantage. Okay.
We mentioned that the Saints defense really looks strong this year. So I think that's what it was. We did mention, I don't know if you knew this, Dave, but Jameis Winston has found himself in another category, weird category, that he's the first quarterback in the new era to have 5 TDs with less than 150 yards.
Yeah, I'm looking at that now. 148 yards passing.
Yeah. So
on
he's found himself
14
in a
completions.
category.
So was Taysom coming in quite a bit?
Didn't come in once.
Really? So they were just throwing touchdowns. There was a lot of turnovers. Like, what happened in this game?
It was just Aaron Rodgers was a disaster.
Yeah.
For some reason, just was targeting Marquise Valdez-Scantling all day, and was overthrowing him or just wasn't catching the ball. Aaron Jones was non-existent. AJ Dillon was non-existent. Devonta Adams, from what I saw, was pretty quiet. And that's it. Every time New Orleans got out there, they just launched it down the field to open receivers. Alvin Kamara got out there early and got a touchdown.
What were the cumulative yardage on his 5 touchdown throws? Because I can't imagine throwing 5 touchdowns.
Touchdown, which
well,
is
there was
hilarious.
There was 2 like maybe 10-yard passes to Juwan Johnson.
Okay.
There did Kamara rushed it in, right?
Yeah, he rushed it in, but barely.
Or was it a shovel pass to Kamara? Because that counts as a pass. Because goodness gracious,
it was not a pass.
Touchdowns.
It was a rushing touchdown.
It was a rushing touchdown.
He
And then there was one to Deontay Harris, huge
50-yard bomb.
Yeah, 50-yard bomb to Deontay Harris. And then who got the other touchdowns?
I don't know.
Chris Hogan. Chris Hogan got one of the touchdowns.
Yes. The lacrosse player. he plays in the lacrosse league.
Yeah,
and
but that's where Bill Belichick found him.
Yeah. But he went back.
But Chris Hogan, man, he talk about wide receivers blocking. He had a dirty block that got Tony Jones on a decent run, or it was Kamara. I don't know, but it was awesome.
Yeah,
I've always loved Chris Hogan.
Like the D was so good that literally right after the game, they're like, what's the defenseman's name? Marshawn Lattimore or
Marshawn Lattimore, cornerback.
Yeah. They gave him money immediately after the game. It's like you stopped Devonta Adams.
He got a new contract. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a big contract. Yeah. All right. So Jameis, would you pick him up? Is he a streamer?
I don't think so. Like in most 12-player leagues, you have pretty good quarterbacks, and all the top 12 quarterbacks, I guess, had great weeks.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine
except for Aaron Rodgers.
Oh yeah, okay.
And Justin
Actually,
Herbert.
That's a good point to bring that up.
Yeah.
If you're the Aaron Rodgers owner, I would immediately pick up Jameis Winston. Because Aaron Rodgers, I said this yesterday on the podcast, he did not look motivated. He looked like an old man who'd been sitting out in the sun for too long.
We said he looks like Jay Cutler. He just gave up.
Yeah, like Jay Cutler. Well, for people who don't know Jay Cutler just always looked like he'd come off a bender, like super hungover. Well, just like
I don't know if he looked like that. It might be that he did.
It was so much so to the point that it's probably an Instagram page now, but it was a web page for a long time where it was called Smoking Jay Cutler, and people would just Photoshop a cigarette into his mouth, and it would always look like it was supposed to be there. Because that's what he looked like. He looked like a guy who was super hungover with a cigarette in his mouth.
Okay. So you think this Aaron Rodgers thing, it's not a one-off. Like you think there could be serious issues in Green Bay?
I wouldn't take the chance. I mean, this will probably be the only week you'll get Jameis Winston on your waiver wire.
Okay.
So I would scoop him up. If you're the Aaron Jones, I think you need to
Aaron Rodgers.
You need to show concern that he is maybe just old.
Scoop up a backup in case. So Jameis Winston could be that guy. Could Jared Goff be that guy? 338 yards, 3 touchdowns?
Nope, not happening.
Fooled.
Don't. Yeah.
This is.
I won't get fooled again.
Yeah. This is what I'm going to say, because I know, Dave, you're going to throw out some other names, but these Jared Goff, Tyrell Taylor, Derek Carr, I would even lean. I mean, I put Winston at the top of the list there, but those three guys, I mean, they're streamers. Moose said it perfectly. Like, you have your QBs already, and those are the guys to stick with. Like, I disagree a little bit with Moose, because Aaron Rodgers usually has a pretty big bounce back game.
Yeah, but why take a chance? Why?
Because
you're not going to
well,
get James.
hold on though. But here's Moose.
He's a top
Moose.
QB in
We're
the
talking about the MVP from last season.
Yeah,
he threw 48 touchdowns last year. He's not a different human being this year.
Tom Brady?
He just went through. He just went through the he almost retired. And then he's like, "Oh, fine, I'll come back."
But not
the guy is not motivated
to play. He's not motivated to play for Green Bay, but he's not.
And where's he playing, Anthony? Where's he playing?
Yeah, but you have to.
Yeah, he's playing in a team he's not motivated to play for.
Yeah, but
that's the number one guy I want on my fantasy team.
Well,
go get Jameis Winston.
Football. You don't know business of football, because he's trying to make it onto another team. So if you have a terrible season, you're not going to get paid to go to another team.
Anthony, he was ready to retire.
Yeah, because
he doesn't care anymore.
He wants to play for another team.
No, that's an overreaction, I think.
So yeah, that's an overreaction. This is 2 against 1. He wants to play for another team, not for Green Bay. So if you want to make it onto another team,
so your advice is let somebody else take Jameis Winston, and if next week Aaron Rodgers sucks, Aaron Rodgers, he was the MVP. Oh, I shouldn't have protected my quarterback situation.
His talent.
Dude, he looked terrible.
Guys, here's what I do know coming out of Green Bay.
Back up your quarterback.
That
if you have
my bold beer bet that Amari Rodgers could be the wide receiver 2 still in play, because they're all around 2 to 3 points. All the other receivers besides Devonta Adams. So I'm sure Aaron Rodgers will bounce back. And if you miss Jameis Winston this week, like, don't feel pressure to get a backup QB, because there's always streamers available.
There's for sure some garbage player sitting at the end of your bench. Switch him out for Jameis Winston. It'll cost you next to nothing this week, or somebody else is going to take Jameis Winston, and then that's it. You'll have to roll with Derek Carr.
Yeah, but I will say this. So how we criticize a little bit Lamar Jackson for the limited amount of throws he made during the game. So Jameis Winston was 14 for 20 against Green Bay, who threw a bunch of interceptions and just looked terrible. So on a team that is giving them a run for their money, can he throw under pressure? Can he throw when he needs to come back from behind? So that's the thing. That's where I would say, that's why I would keep him as a streamer and not as a backup. Don't roster a second QB. Aaron Rodgers is still MVP. He didn't look motivated.
Anthony, you're not getting Jameis Winston's not going to be sitting around.
That's fine.
Somebody's going
to pick him up. He's going to have a bad week, and he's going to find himself right back on the waiver wire like the other streamers.
Or someone else will be available. So you heard it here first. Moose is saying stash him.
Yeah.
Anthony's saying wait. I think you can wait if you have Aaron Rodgers. If you missed on quarterback and you drafted 2 super late guys like Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, now you're like, I don't know. Exactly. Then, and you were hoping for a rookie to break out, then pick up Jameis Winston. All right, guys. Is that it for waiver wire? Can we move on? Jalen Hurts is not available on the waiver wire because people listen to me.
No. If you have Jalen Hurts as your starting QB.
Oh, yeah, because you're disappointed with his 28 points this week?
Against Atlanta Falcons.
Okay.
We'll see next week.
Yeah, they're going to be – here's the beauty of Philadelphia. They're going to be trailing all the time, and they're going to be like, Jalen, go for it. Throw it, run it, have fun. He's on pace for over 1,000 yards rushing. I don't know if anyone could have told you that would be in the cards.
Week 1 day.
I don't know.
It's going to be real.
Just saying what he's on pace for.
I'm going to remember this, episode 137. Make a mental note of that.
Write it down.
So that we can tell you. Imagine if someone could have told you that Jalen Hurts was going to be terrible.
Yeah, look forward to that. Did he look terrible?
I didn't watch the game.
I didn't watch the game. I'm not going to watch the game.
Okay. All right, so can we move on to the next segment?
Sure.
Yeah. All right, so we want to give you a chance on this recording Monday night episode coming out Tuesday. I want to give you a chance to prep in case you have anybody in the Thursday night game. So that'll be the routine is give you some advice for start, sit, and risk and beer assessment for Thursday night football coming up. And it's featuring the New York Giants versus the Washington football team. Washington clearly, again, I didn't get to see the full game, but clearly a top defense. From a fantasy standpoint, really shut down the Chargers, and Justin Herbert had a measly 13 or 15 points in fantasy. The Giants also a pretty decent defense of their own. So what are we expecting from this game and these outcomes here, guys? Is this like, could this be a trap for Saquon Barkley, Antonio Gibson, Terry McLaurin? Are we in danger of some low scoring?
I hesitate. I have Terry McLaurin, and I'm hesitating now. He probably hasn't taken that many reps with Tyler Heinicke.
Taylor
Heinicke.
Taylor Heineken. Get serious.
Taylor Heineken. So I worry that this week maybe it's hard to sit Terry McLaurin because he's so talented, but it could be dangerous this week.
Okay, so what's
there's a bit of
risk from one beer being the risk?
I'm putting 4 beers. I'm probably going to put 4 beers on Terry
because of his talent. His talent brings him to 4. If he was already a flex type option, he'd be lower. You're giving him a 4. Yeah. I think that's fair. I'd give him 4. I wouldn't give him lower than 4 because he's too good. He's too good. I wouldn't give him lower than 4.
Wide receiver 1, De'Ami Brown, and Adam Humphries. I mean, De'Ami Brown struggled. Humphries was Fitzpatrick's guy. I mean, Humphries, if Taylor Heinicke is going to check down, it's going to be Humphries and it's going to be Logan Thomas. But I would say McLaurin,
Logan Thomas has got to be a play this week.
Well,
again,
you drafted
right?
him to be your starting tight end, but you keep him in. You start Gibson, you start McLaurin, and that's about it on the Washington side.
I think you flex McLaurin.
You flex McLaurin. Okay, makes sense. I would flex him. Yeah.
And I'm looking at running backs against the Giants. Melvin Gordon, 11 carries for 101 yards against the Giants. He had himself
he
a
had
day.
one big play.
Okay.
At the end of the game when it didn't matter.
Hey, matters for fantasy though.
Yeah,
matters for fantasy.
Was definitely happy. It helped me win my week in one league.
So, and Gibson, you kind of got to keep going back to the well with Gibson. You drafted him in the second round, probably of your drafts. You're going to keep playing him until 10 points. You're not excited by 10 points in week 1. But,
one thing to note: he was apparently hampered today at practice with a shoulder injury.
That is something to keep your eye on.
Yep.
Okay. On the Giants side of the ball, Saquon Barkley owners. They told us, they warned us, the coaches, that he wasn't going to be played a lot. I still played him in a flex spot in our deep roster dynasty league because how do you not, just in case one of his carries goes off? But you're probably pretty disappointed with 3 points. Do we expect more of the same in week 2?
I would say yes.
And we're going against a very good front seven, one of the best defenses in the league. Even if he gets more touches, it could be trouble.
I would say it's yes to that question until he doesn't.
So for Saquon, what are we looking at beer scale here? Like, are we putting him at a 2?
Yeah.
2 beers? 1 beer, Moose?
Yeah.
He's still Saquon.
Well, yeah, but it doesn't matter until we see them take him off a pitch count or until we see him be Saquon. I think the risk is always there that he's just going to have, he goes out there, he runs one play and goes, "Hey coach, my knee is sore." Okay, you're out.
The only thing to me is that this is division rival, and divisional games are very important. Washington, they both lost their first game, both looking to knock out 0-2 and lose to a divisional opponent. I think we see Saquon just get a little bit more touches, but what that factors into fantasy wise, I don't know.
I don't think so. I don't think winning the division rivalry, obviously.
No, winning the division. They're trying to make the playoffs, right?
But they're obviously very concerned with his knee, and they've made it clear that they're more concerned about the longevity of Saquon Barkley. It's rare that a team would be like, "Oh, we're holding our best guy back from being the best guy." So I can't see them just suddenly being like, "Yeah, we just want to win this game, so go out there and blow out your knee."
All right, so Moose, you put him at 2 beers, pretty risky. Anthony, where do you have him?
Yeah,
I have him at 3 because you're not benching him. This reminds me a little bit of Allen Robinson, Roman numeral 2. We had him at 3 beers due to a different reason because he was going up against Ramsey. But Barkley, you can't bench. I put him at 3 because guys that I rank at 3 beers, I kind of look at them as a flex position. So I think you can flex them unless you have a definitely better
3
option.
3 points at the flex is brutal.
Right, but it was 3 points.
Bench players get 3 points.
Right. But
or Ezekiel week 1, first game, it happens.
But again, you drafted him, you can't afford to bench him because if he goes off, then you're going to kill yourself. Week 1, there was a lot of bad performances.
Yeah,
from
but
top
the difference
players.
is someone busting and someone being held back by the coaches. So until the coaches say, "Yeah, we're letting him go," and then if he busts, okay, fine, you can make that argument about Ezekiel Elliott. But the coaching staff is actually holding him back. They're saying, "No, we don't know if we want to let him loose."
And it is
yet.
a short week coming up on Thursday, so pay attention to the news. See what the coaches are saying leading into the game. So I put him at 3 as well. I put him at 3 beers.
Yeah, I mean, I'll put him at 3 beers, same kind of thing. But
I think it takes guts to bench him. Put it that way. I think it takes guts to bench Saquon Barkley.
But it also depends. It also depends what your team looks like. I mean, people who were listening to this podcast, we specifically said that if you draft Saquon Barkley, you need to consider that and get running backs to replace him. Yeah, if you didn't do that, of course, then you have to start Saquon Barkley if you've got someone else who couldn't maybe get better. So yeah, I agree with you, Anthony. There, if you have nobody else, you got to start him in case he goes off. But if you have, let's say you got like a Kareem Hunt or something, like I would maybe start Kareem Hunt over Saquon Barkley.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
for
sure. There's better plays for your RB1, but talking about 2 running back slots and a flex, it could be tough to bench him. But if you have the depth to do it, it's something to consider for sure. What about Sterling Shepard, Kenny Golladay? These guys, what's the wide receiver situation against Washington? Again, we saw Keenan Allen
bench them all.
Bench all your guys.
New York Giants is going to be a tire fire. I think Kenny Golladay must be. It's the same argument. I think with Saquon Barkley is hard to bench. But
no, I don't think it's hard to bench because where they were drafted. So Golladay, you drafted later to hit on him, kind of like a Corey Davis. So he's not technically slotted in your starting lineup. He's maybe drafted at the flex position where you can definitely start.
I mean, I think some people definitely drafted Kenny Golladay as a wide receiver 1 or 2. For
not
sure.
1. You didn't.
No,
you didn't
he's
need
not
to draft
going wide receiver
1.
1 territory.
Well, I'm sure some people did. But anyways, the fact of the matter is, I would bench him. Again, same kind of thing until I see New York stepping up and Daniel Jones being a good quarterback.
So beer scale, and they're going against Washington. I mean, Mike Williams put up 18 points. Keenan Allen put up 13, but that was off the back of quite a bit of volume, 12 and 13 targets each.
Yeah. And both of them are substantially better than Kenny Golladay, at least situation wise.
And they have Justin Herbert and the great offense in front of them. So Sterling Shepard, where do you put his risk assessment for this week? How many beers you give him?
2.
That's where I'd like to go. I wouldn't go as much as 1, but I'd go 2 for Sterling Shepard, and same for Kenny Golladay.
2. I'm giving them 2 because someone's got to catch the ball.
Yeah, and you got to figure if they do happen to score a touchdown, right? Like the throw for a touchdown is probably gonna be one of those guys. So, Anthony, you agree with 2 beers? You give him a 1, a 3?
I'll give him a 3 because based on the target share, he's
between him and the defense. That's a Daniel Jones interception joke.
I got it.
He was targeted 9 times. I mean, Daniel Jones is most familiar with Slayton and Shepard, but you don't know. Like, you can't expect a big fantasy performance from Shepard. He's not even considered boom or bust. So I would say 3 if you want to take that, because I think some people drafted him to take a shot on him being healthy and already having a rapport with Daniel Jones. So, I mean, he's sneaky, but I wouldn't start him. So I'll go 2 with you guys, actually.
Okay, there you go.
I think
that
3
for Kenny G.
3 is a start. Like 3 is a starting beer scale.
Start.
Yeah, exactly. So he's a 2.
Yeah, I'll go 2.
Okay, back to 2. All right, fair enough. So that's Washington, New York. We're expecting, and of course, we're expecting a defensive battle and low scoring, and for these guys to be risky starts. And then what are we going to see? Like a 40-37 game that goes into overtime, and it's wild because that's fantasy football and that's the NFL. But in terms of most likely scenarios, it's what we just laid out for you. All right, can we move on to the next segment?
Yes, let's do it.
Awesome. Well, it's time for. It's been a while since they said it on Reddit.
That wasn't good.
It wasn't good?
No. Oh, that's the first
What?
time.
That was fantastic. Anthony, I thought it was great.
I thought it was okay.
You didn't go into the they properly.
I didn't. That's true. It took me a little 2 words to figure it out. Give me a 5 on the beer scale.
Sorry, pal.
Risk.
You're shaking off some rust.
Yeah.
Shaking off the rust. Don't give up on me. Don't drop me because I'll go off and I'll be a waiver wire pickup.
All right. So this one's coming from user shirtless_hero. RB2s to target.
Moose, you're putting in the Reddits now? I get you. Shirtless hero. Just joking around. Like Moose is a shirtless hero. Keep going, Anthony.
Thanks for interrupting. I appreciate it. RB2s to target after week 1. Halfway through every season, it seems like the top contenders in each league tend to have a stud RB1 and a mid to high-end RB2. Who are some RBs that you think might end up as a high-end RB2 that aren't being valued like them right now?
High-end RB2s that aren't being valued as RB2s? Is this for trade targets or for waiver wire pickups?
I think it's just in general.
In general, like it could be people on your bench. It could be people you pick up. It's running back 2s that will end up as high-end RB2s.
Okay. Well, running back 2s that will end up that high. Well, interesting. Okay. I'll throw out some names for you guys and you tell me your thoughts and if this even factors. I mean, one of the guys we talked about endlessly on the podcast who went off in week 1, Jamal Williams. Likely unavailable in most leagues. Maybe take a gander, but he won't be after this.
But I don't know if he counts because we were all I think most people already had him like as a high end.
Well, not as
I don't
RB2
know the way he was
drafted.
He was drafted
there.
Yeah, he was drafted like round 9 or 10 sometimes.
He's a flex right now where he was drafted, and I don't think even after a big week 1. Swift had 1 point less than him. So Swift had 20 points. Swift was drafted as an RB2. So Swift right now is an RB2. So I would say Swift still, I guess Swift can be that guy because a lot of people were lower on him and maybe flex Swift instead of starting him as RB2.
Like when I read this, I was thinking more like guys like Samaje P. Ryan or like Wayne Gallman at this point. Like these low end RB2s. Who, out of circumstance or whatever, become these high-end players.
So you're interpreting I think you're interpreting the RB2 in like
on the depth chart.
In the depth chart, but he seems like he's mentioning contenders in fantasy leagues. Halfway through every season, it seems like the top contenders in each league tend to have a stud RB1 and a mid to high end RB2. So I think he's referring to RB2s on your fantasy teams.
Well, I mean, at this point, it's probably too late. Like you're getting these guys in the draft. That's why I was thinking of guys that would be available on the waiver wire because stud RB2s, they're gone. You'd have to trade at this point. So then the question is, who should he trade for?
Right, exactly. So it could be for trade, or maybe if there's somebody underperformed in week 1 and somebody does a silly drop. I mean, a name I'd like to throw out there. I lost. So
so let's look at some names of people. So what he's specifically asking for, shirtless_hero, is players, running backs that are going to end up being very valuable RB2s in your team that aren't being valued like that right now. So you can either pick them up on the waiver wire, you can trade for them, whatever. But people
and he said after week 1, because I'm sure some RB2s are valued a lot lower now based on their performances. So
yeah, I mean, like people. So maybe people who perform badly, like Mike Davis wasn't great. Kenyon Drake, if you're a Kenyon Drake person. Who else?
Kenyon Drake must have done all right tonight. He looked like he got
8 points.
Yeah,
James Robinson's there.
Yeah, James Robinson had less carries week 1 to Carlos Hyde. So I mean, James Robinson is still the RB1 there. But
Devonta Williams.
Javonte Williams.
There's a name. Only 4.6 points. Melvin Gordon went off. It's not a good sign for him, but there's someone talking about late season that could end up being very good RB2.
So a good name too that was being drafted more in this flex position is Chase Edmonds. Yep. I think that is a name to look at because James Conner was being drafted around the same round as he was, So I think Chase Edmonds with the receiving out of the backfield can find himself as a high end RB2 because James Conner doesn't have he doesn't seem to finish seasons. So I think Chase Edmonds is a very big candidate for that.
What do you guys think of Kenneth Gainwell in Philadelphia? First game, 10 points. He saw some action in the receiving game. Do you think he's someone to keep an eye on? I ask out of personal importance here.
I think he's someone you got to wait on a little bit. Let's see.
Okay.
Let's see him do it again.
Naheem Hines is a name. Anthony had a decent week. He always seems to be in the game. No one's excited about him, but he always seems to produce.
Yeah, he got a little bit more carries, but it's based on receiving. So
he got 8 targets, caught 6 for 8, 6 of 8, 48 yards.
This is a running back that'll disappear in some matchups. So I think to be a high-end RB2, you have to have some consistency. Maybe Moose and I talked about this a little bit. I think Gaskin has been drafted as an RB2, but some people might be a little lower on him. He had 10 fantasy points around. And the backfield, it was a shared, everybody shared the work, but I think
okay, so hold on.
Season goes on.
Let's do this here.
There.
Okay, so guys, you could probably get on a trade. Chris Carson, yay or nay?
Yes,
I would like to have Chris Carson.
Boom,
as my RB2.
So there's that shirtless wonder. This is Chris Carson. David Montgomery.
I wouldn't mind having David Montgomery.
Boom. There's a guy you could go after.
Do you think that'll be tough to get him? But yeah.
Josh Jacobs, that toe looks injured, but when the toe wasn't injured, he looked all right tonight.
I mean, he'd be fine as an RB2. I'm less excited about him. Like he got 2 touchdowns, right? So he's going to be touchdown dependent, but as an RB2, fine. By the way, David Montgomery, 18 points week 1, and he finished 4th overall last year.
I don't think
not getting David Montgomery.
I think
that would not be a time to trade for him.
I think the people that drafted David Montgomery are the people that believed in him when everybody else passed on him. So
this guy's also talking end of season though. So he could trade up a lot of assets to get David Montgomery. We don't know what the situation is. We don't even know if he's trying to trade. We don't even know the context of the question really. Darrell Henderson, Kareem Hunt.
Kareem Hunt would love to have Darrell Henderson. Yep, he'd be great.
Kareem Hunt for sure.
All right, so these ones are probably a little bit less now at this point, but could still be interesting. Tony Pollard.
Not as excited.
I just said they're a little bit less.
I'd say no. Devin Singletary.
Could be interesting.
That's a name. If Zach Moss's injury is anything.
Oh.
Apparently it's not just the injury. Apparently Matt Breida outplayed him at camp.
Okay. So that even more so.
Yeah.
And they went up against a Steelers defense that is clearly going to be elite again. So his 7.5 points probably got people not very excited, but Buffalo's going to be good. So there's an opportunity there. Watch out. Who knows? People could even drop Singletary in your league, or you could definitely, he's easy to trade for right now, or easier to trade for right now. And who's Buffalo playing next week? They're playing Miami. That could be a tough week. Washington, that could be a tough week. So he'll his first 3 weeks probably not going to be that good, but then they play Houston and Kansas City, Tennessee.
So I think we've listed off all the running backs now.
Okay.
Well, I just want to bring one more just to annoy Moose, but realistically, I do believe it. So a guy that I believe will finish as a high-end RB2, Damian Harris. And I'll say it for this reason. He got 23 carries, 100 yards. So this was something I said he would have. He would get majority of the touches. I thought he would get into the red zone.
Majority of the fumbles too.
Yeah, so this is what I wanted to mention. So he fumbled, and Belichick's unhappy, but all the analysts, I was listening to the game recaps on NFL Network and some other analysts, and they were saying that hopefully Belichick doesn't bench him because he looked really good. Like talent-wise, he looked amazing. So
and
Belichick
Ramondre also had a fumble, so there's not many other options.
Right.
And so the next highest, he had 23 carries. The next highest was James White with 4.
Right. So if he does limit his touches for now, I don't think he'll be in the doghouse for a long time. So maybe trade for him now because everybody's listening to Belichick saying that, he's upset with him. So try and trade for him. This is a guy that I think can be very valuable and RB2 potential towards the end of the season.
There you go. So we got Damian Harris, we got Chase Edmonds, Devin Singletary could be a target. And we're talking about people who wouldn't be valued very high right now.
Right.
those are some top guys. Jamal Williams, obviously valued very highly right now. So not a great choice. Good. Yeah. I might even put Mike Davis on that list because his value will be really low right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those are some good ones. Those are some solid ones. Moose, you happy with those?
Yeah, I think I'm good with that. I mean, I misunderstood the question, I guess. So I thought we were going to take a whole another approach, but I'm happy with that.
Okay. Well, I'm happy you're happy. Guys, what have you been drinking?
I've been having a classic Heineken.
I have an IPA. It's called La Bite à TB.
Like La Bite Temiskaming.
Yeah, exactly. That's
a wonderful place.
Show
us the can. Show YouTube the can. If you're not following us on YouTube, you got to go check it out. Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
It's a very tasty IPA.
You guys end up with a lot of green cans.
Yeah, I know.
You know, the Heinekens and the Stellas. What else is green? What's the other green one? Peroni? No, not Peroni. Moretti? Green. It's green. It's a green bottle.
No, it's a brown bottle.
Oh. It's Peroni then?
Peroni. Yeah.
What's the other green ones? There's other green ones. That's all I'm saying. There's green ones. I had water today, so that's green. I'm going green.
Grolsch, Stella, Artois, Carlsberg. Those are all
Carlsberg. It's a Walking Dead beer. Guys, I drank water today because I came straight from. I got no beer in the fridge. I did have a vodka soda though. Excuses. I came straight from the ferry, man. So I saw Shang-Chi this weekend. Very good. Highly recommend. You're gonna love it, Anthony. You will love it.
Yeah, I love Marvel stuff.
You will love it, but it's unique. That's what I like. It's not the same old Marvel stuff. It's got Marvel elements. It feels like Marvel, but it feels like it's got a little bit of Jackie Chan martial arts elements to it. Like I really felt like a lot of the fight scenes reminded me of some Jackie Chan, like Rumble in the Bronx, Rush Hour. And then it has like some Narnia Avatar feels to it. Game of Thrones feels to it at some points. You're like, this is so cool. Highly recommend. I think it might go down as the best Phase 4 Marvel. Could even be in the top all Marvels, like top 5. I think it's
top grossing at the moment of all.
Heck yeah, people are excited to see movies again. The world was closed for so long. So go see it. Highly recommend. Anything else from you guys for recommendations? Words of wisdom? Any of that nature?
No, except put your best gut forward, especially when it comes to making waiver claims.
Yeah, put your best fab forward. Might be it for this week. Or use your gut putting your best fab in. You know? There's something there. As we head into this part of the hemisphere, we're heading into winter, so it's never going to be 295 Kelvin for a long time. So we should probably come up with when to wear a scarf or mittens outside pretty soon. We'll come up with one of those.
Do you guys wear scarves?
No, not in Victoria because it's always beautiful. We don't have like serious winter.
I've never worn
West Coast.
Okay, Dave, in Montreal, did you wear a scarf ever?
Yes, often. I would wear a scarf more often than gloves. Is that weird?
I think it's a little weird.
I don't know. Scarves can also be fashionable.
I mean,
it's too hot.
In the winter?
Yeah, it's too hot.
Yeah.
You got your coat and a scarf?
Well, look at Moose's beard. I mean, if you're watching YouTube, Moose can just like put his head down and he's covered. So he's good to go. All right. Anyways, this is super fun. Glad the season is kicked off. Week 1 in the books. Hopefully you won your week 1 or you're happy with your team. Don't overreact. Be patient with the guys we told you to be patient about. And we'll see you Thursday to prep you for week 2. As always, thanks for listening.
See you Thursday.
Ciao.